Chris's breakout song, and indeed the first song he ever released, was Stephen.
I was very young when I first heard it, and I have to say it was like nothing I ever heard before.
You're watching on like a leather ball, but you don't feel it's a metaphor.
And I said, Mother, I feel like someone has kicked open my garden shed and handed me a bathroom biscuit. And I said, Mother, I feel like someone's playing with my mind.
Stephen, get me.
You knew that this was the announcement of a phenomenon, really. You knew that this was the kind of prelude to someone really becoming something brilliant. After the success of Stephen, there was huge pressure on Chris, and a lot of people waiting for him to slip up and see what his next move would be. Why is it flashing now? After the success of Stephen, there was huge pressure on Chris. A lot of people waiting to see what he'd do next, and also waiting for him to make a mistake. What you could hear in Stephen was that this was a guy that had a lot of darkness inside him, and I mean, when he released Dinner, which is such a kind of almost joyous track, it was really unexpected, and all the better for it. And what it really brought home to you was that you thought you knew Chris in that way, that you do think you know things. And when he released Stephen, that was kind of an introduction to his songs. And then when he released Dinner, it was an introduction to the man, Chris Samways, because it really was as if he was inviting you to dinner with him. And it was an invitation that was accepted by millions.
Would you like to come to dinner after your tea? If there's someone having dinner, it's usually me. Lunch is a lovely meal, but I like dinner the most.
Yeah, of course. I loved the idea that Chris Samways was inviting me to dinner. When I heard that song, I did actually send him an email. But obviously these were in the days before computers, so he didn't actually receive it, I don't think, until a good few years later.
Well, at that time, after Dinner, Chris was making moves with some bigger labels, and he's working with RCA at the time, and they really wanted him to toughen up his image. What we all thought he would do would be to kind of respond by retreating and removing himself from the limelight and really kind of going into himself. But what he did was to flip it on its head, and he came out with possibly the toughest song of the last, I'd say, 40 years.
Wait for a walk on a summer's day. You're gonna see you because you was looking gay.
Went for a walk on a summer's day, I couldn't see you because you were looking gay. It just seemed to speak to me at that time in my life. The idea that, you know, one could be gay and invisible at the same time just seemed to encapsulate the way my mind felt at those moments.
Bands did covers of Looking Gay for years after that. I mean, yeah, so big song. He'd become very interested in a lot of American artists, these singer-songwriter types. Chris thought this was really challenging. And Chris thought that this was really channeling the spirit of those early American frontiersmen. Chris thought that this was really channeling the spirit of those early American frontiersmen, which is what effectively Chris saw himself as being.
I keep walking round the corners, trying to get inside your trousers. I see you, you see me. Gotta sing together, please. Don't go walking without your broomstick. Don't go walking without your broomstick.
When I first heard broomstick, it was, you know, I was like, who's this? I said, me and my wife were in the kitchen and she just put on the radio and she said, it's Chris. You know, you're his #1 fan. And my wife was actually sweeping up around me. We used to like to leave a body print of dust on the floor. And she's, you know, so she was sweeping up around me and we were.
You see my son? I'm afraid I have. Ma'am, you see my son? No, I haven't. Ah! Has anyone seen his son? Please, somebody! Have you seen my son?
After a while of touring, he had sunk into kind of a depression. A song like "Have You Seen My Son," what he's really saying to you is have you seen my joy? Have you seen my life force? And also, have you seen my actual son? Because he hadn't seen his son for a very long time.
It was an incredibly sad song, yet still, you know, it makes you want to dance.
Did you hear Paul?
Yeah, I see it.
Oh yeah, he talked to me last night.
Yeah, he talked to us.
Oh, he talked to you then.
He was living in a loft in New York, and he suddenly one day decided to move back to London and make friends with Top Loader. Chris asked them if he could cover one of their songs, which was in turn a cover.
He could sing incredibly low and high at the same time. I mean, that kind of way of singing originated in Kazakhstan in the 1990s, and he once showed me how to sing like this, but I was too drunk to listen.
Dancing in the moonlight, everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a natural delight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight.
Dancing in the Moonlight, he did a cover of Dancing in the Moonlight, then he did a cover of Chris Isaak's.
He followed it up with another cover version because he was making music for his own enjoyment. Paul Weller, who Chris knew quite well, was very angry with him because he said it was stupid, and he's been vindicated by history. And there's a story that Bob Dylan, after Jimi Hendrix covered All Along the Watchtower, he would always consider All Along the Watchtower a Jimi Hendrix song afterwards because he'd done it so well. And you've got to think that Chris Isaak probably felt the same way after hearing this.
And I wanna fall in love. Yes, I wanna fall in love.
He did something very clever with that, you know. he sings "I Don't Want to Fall in Love," either followed by or preceded by "I Want to Fall in Love," and just that mixture of wanting something at the same time as not wanting it. He hit that on the head with a big nail, and I think it was actually a hammer that was drummed into the ground. I mean, if you hit a hammer on the nail with the head, I mean, God knows what's going to happen. And it was explosive stuff from Chris Samways.
Obviously, this was the part of the interview that I'm not looking forward to, because as a big fan of Chris's, this was the song that was such a huge flop for him. Off the back of his success with Dancing in the Moonlight and Wanna Fall in Love, he chose to do a third cover, and quite a cynical move in my opinion. He did a cover of a Tupac song, that Tupac song called Things Cool. What's that?
Things will always be the same.
He said things will never change, things will always be the same. I hear he's developed mange, too much boredom in his brain. Now I believe
Where your eyes are your heart, you tear me apart. Your hair is your brain.
"Hair Is Your Brain" is the most recent release of Chris's, and I mean, it's a couple of years ago. But it's still a haunting verse. "Your hair is your bright brain, and your eyes are the same."
He was angry with how people received the Tupac cover. He was angry with his wife, for other reasons. He was very violent. For a few years, he was very violent at gigs. Did a lot of head walking, stage diving, windmilling, that kind of thing. Something must have changed inside him when he mellowed, and he just decided that, he might never know who he was, and he might never know how to really make himself happy. But that's all right, and that's when you hear a song like "Hair Is Your Brain," that's Chris really saying, I don't know who I am, you don't know who you are, but I have a kind of idea of who I am, and this is possibly what it is.
Chris grew up in I think it was Isleworth in southwest London, and he was actually taught by his granny at home until the age of 3 years old. He took up residence with a group of monks in Chingford, and so Chris was taught about vegetables from an early age, and he also he started writing novels when he was about 3, around about that time, 13 or something. He was born and bred an Irishman, which was very confusing for him since his fathers were both Japanese. This story has been recounted in the press falsely. When he was 16, he went down to the New Forest and found himself somewhere off the coast of Luxembourg. This didn't actually happen. He went down to Luxembourg and never even intended to go to the New Forest.